Hey y'all, Jessica from Pretty Prints and Paper, and I'm continuing my Dupe or Dud series today. If you're not familiar with the Dupe or Dud, it is really popular in the makeup world where they take brand name products and compare them to their store brand cheaper counterparts to see if that extra money is really worth it or if you can get away with the drugstore brand. So I'm starting with the really popular Leuchtturm dot grid notebook and comparing it to the Artist Loft brand from Michaels, their dot grid notebook. Pretty easily, the first thing I'm going to start with is the outside. So the hardcover on the Leuchtturm, very, very durable, very typical hardcover. And then in the Artist Loft version, the cover is slightly more pliable, which means it bends just a little bit more easily, but it's still, I think, very much a hard cover. The texture of the front is similar, just a little bit more supple to the touch, so a little softer. And what you'll notice too is that there are very similar colors as options when you go to the store. So some of the most popular colors of the Leuchtturm are found with the Michaels Artist Loft versions. This berry color, a brighter blue color that's similar to this, a navy, a gray, black, the emerald, which is that teal color, and then the bright purple. So you'll find those colors available, and they come in dot, ruled, grid, and I think maybe even blank. So there's a lot of different kinds, and right away what you're going to find is the price difference. The Leuchtturm is online on Amazon for about $20. Sometimes I see it on sale for $15. But the Artist Loft ones, when you find them at the store, are $5 US. 5. You can't use your coupon on it because it's an everyday value, so I learned that when I checked out. But it is $5, so we'll see if it's worth the hype. You'll see that the size is a little bit different. So the Leuchtturm is a A5 size, and this is a true 6x8. So when I lay them down, it's a little bit shorter and a touch wider than the Leuchtturm A5 size, and pretty similar in thickness, maybe a little bit thicker. The weight is about the same. There's another notebook I just bought, the Scribbles That Matter notebook. That is a heavy notebook, y'all, so they're about similar weight. The first thing I noticed when I opened up the notebook is that there is an index, and the paper is much whiter than the Leuchtturm. So there's me not using the index. So there's an index in this notebook as well. It doesn't label it, so you can label it whatever you want it to be. But you'll notice that that paper is quite whiter than the Leuchtturm. So if you're a fan of the bright white, you might be excited to find that. So it has those dedicated pages for your index if you use it, but unfortunately it doesn't have page numbers. So it is a little bit different in that if you look at the dot grid in the Leuchtturm, it kind of goes all the way to the edge. But on here, there's a little bit of a gap between the top and the bottom edges. So there's not dots there. And no page numbers. So they're basically the same number of pages, but the pages are whiter and no page numbers. The book lays pretty flat. You might have to press it a little bit, but lays pretty flat. And there's 2 ribbon bookmarks, very similar to the Leuchtturm in that there's a striped one and a solid color one. And there's no back pocket like there is in the Leuchtturm. So in features, I think those are the main differences. And then you get to the pen test, which everybody finds to be the most valuable, because sometimes you care about the notebook use and then sometimes you care about what pens you use. So you adapt one for the other. So in my Leuchtturm, I used some of my favorites. So I'm a gel pen girl, but I found a ballpoint just in case anybody was interested in how that fared. And then I used a couple of my favorite gels, a thicker gel pen if you like a 0.7, but most of mine are 0.5. So keep that in mind because obviously the thicker ones will show through a little differently. And then I have 3 different fountain pens, the Tombow Twin Tone because I use that for coloring a lot, and then my handy Pentel Sign brush pen, which I use for headers, as well as the Tombow, and then I use the Crayola Super Tip for a highlight to see how that would show up on the other side. So as I flip it over, this is the thing about the Leuchtturm, right? It's not the Rhodia. The paper, you're going to see a little more through it. I think it's an 80 grams per square meter thickness. So you can see quite a bit, especially the bottoms of that fountain pen, which is why I often have to skip pages in my Leuchtturm to start a new blank page, because I can see so clearly through the other side. So it's fine, especially if you start writing on the other side, you can kind of get over it. But if you're using fountain pens, that's how that fares. But when you compare it to the Michaels version, I did pretty much the same. Same pens in the back. I did quite a few of them. And then when I flip it over, whew, it does pretty well, to be honest. You can definitely see the brush pen starting to bleed, but that makes sense because that's a marker, as well as that more thick fountain pen. You can see it start to bleed here. And then which pen is this? Oh yeah, another fountain pen here, so that starts to bleed through, which makes sense because that's why people use the Rhodia paper, is if they use fountain pens, it stands up quite a bit better. So you can see the shadows of the thicker pens, especially like if you use a 0.7, so the Zebra Sarasa is a 0.7, and it's a really inky pen, so you can kind of see that. But honestly, look at that. It might actually be a little better in some ways. Those are the main differences. I don't know. What other questions do you have about this? This obviously won't fit into your traveler's notebooks if they're made to fit a true A5, but for $5, man, this is nice. The paper seems thinner when you flip through it, but as you saw, it kind of holds up to the pens I tried on it. So maybe I can, find some folks who have actually been using it for their layouts, but for $5, this is a really good deal. Especially if you're getting started, it's always good to start cheaper so that you can find what works for you much faster and fail quickly to figure out the styles that you like, the pens that you like, the layouts that work for you. So this is a great starting journal, I would say. I also just bought a shit ton of other journals off of Amazon because I'm trying to help folks find journals that are cheaper than the $20 that have been really popular lately. So I'm gonna do some reviews of those as well. Check that out later. But for now, it seems like this is a really great option. If you can find it in your Michaels store, I bought a couple extra just to see. And then if you have trouble finding it, hopefully there's some other people that can find it for you. Anyway, if you have other questions, write them down below in the comments. If you liked it, share it, thumbs up, or whatever. I just hope that you enjoy it. Thank you, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.